We say I love you to each other all the time, and it sounds simple, but for a lot of people, it's not. Because when you grow up around chaos, love doesn't always feel clear. It can feel loud, confusing, or like something you have to earn. And if that's what you're used to, then the quiet, steady kind of love, the kind that doesn't make you question where you stand, well, that feels unfamiliar. So today's episode, I Love You Man, is about that kind of love, the green flags. The people who are consistent, the ones who stay the same in every room, the ones who let you be exactly who you are without making you earn their love, and what it looks like to recognize when that love shows up.
Come on in and grab a seat. There's no better place to be. Two Midwestern Gen Xers emotionally stunted. Subtlety was not part of our upbringing. So here we are in all of our glory, country crocked. I can't believe it's not better.
Oh, good evening, Kendra. How are you doing?
Good evening, Ange. As you well know, I am not a night bird. I am a early bird. So I am tired, but I'm ready to do this.
Yeah, it's been a long day for me, and I got a lot of stuff going on this weekend and next week. And it's just kind of like the mental Olympics over here, trying to, get all my checklists knocked out and crossed off and bags packed. And man, this is probably like your OCD wet dream, but like it gives me so much anxiety and I hate it. But yeah, I found myself a bunch of times today kind of going back to Facebook and I don't want to say doom scrolling anymore because you started sending me like these dumb dad joke alien reels and now like they're showing up in my suggested reels. So like every time I pick up my phone, it's like what do you call an obese psychic? A
What?
fortune teller. I'm like, oh man, I can't wait to call your mom and tell her that one.
Oh, I sent them to her. It's actually my girlfriend sent them to me and got it. And then I opened it one time. And then, like you said, all I have is these alien dad jokes. And it's like, and what she's talking about is these aliens that are talking, telling dad jokes. And they're the most corniest things. I found myself laughing at them. So I was like, oh, Angela and my mother are just like, they'll enjoy this.
Well, you keep saying to them, so that means you like them. So I
I
think you
do.
have
I
a little
like
bit in
them.
me.
I like them. I got a little bit of you guys in me, just a hair.
Well,
Not
your
watching
mom
any
this
Ernest movies.
week. Well, no, I didn't watch any Ernest movies. I did talk to your mom though. And like you said, your phone's been ringing off the hook. I guess hers has too. And I was talking on her cell phone and her house phone kept ringing. She's like, "Oh my God, Angie." She's like, you would not believe. My phone is just she's like, hold on. Let me get this. Oh, I'm gonna get them this time. She's like, check this out, Angie. She's like, hello. This is MAGA. We are busy making America great again. Please leave a message. And then she giggles like a 12-year-old schoolgirl in 1992. She's like, did you hear me?
Yeah, and what you're referring to, so our audience knows, is here in the Midwest, we endured that storm last week, and all we have gotten is our phones ringing nonstop from, I'm sure most of it scammers with wanting to come look at your roof, wanting to come look at your actors and such. So, yeah, my mom is having a heyday with them, and I mean, I think she told one. I forget what, I think she was a Jehovah Witness one time, a mega supporter one time, and it's entertaining to her. I'm like, okay, go for it.
But yeah, I wanted to kick off this episode, and just say, Kendra, I love you, man. I
I
do.
love you too.
I love you, man. And I wonder, like we say it to each other all the time, and it makes me wonder why other people feel like it's so weird to say out loud.
Yeah, I don't understand why it's so weird. I think every conversation we end before I let you go is I love you. I guess we're looking at it as, I don't know, it's not just a nice gesture, but it's really, you need to let the people in your life know that you love them. I mean, I tell my very, very close friends the same thing. Like, we hang up and I'm like, I love you. You know, tonight I went to dinner with some girlfriends, and one of them's been like one of my best friends for like 20 plus years. And I was like, I love you. And she says the same thing if I don't say it first. You know, it's a nice way to end a conversation, and especially with somebody you truly love. You know, so this past few weeks, we have, in a couple months now here, that we have been really going through telling our story. And sometimes people might look at it as, do they ever come up for air and have anything good to say about their past? And you know, we do. We actually do. Because we're exploring how healing can include remembering moments that were still good, safe, and or loving. You know, I'm still trying to remember all those things. And that's part of healing, not just remembering the terrible thing that happened to us that created this trauma in our lives and created this podcast. But part of healing is also remembering moments that are still good, still safe, and loving. It's not minimizing what happened to us. It's saying that this happened, but so did these other good things happened in our life.
I feel like, Kendra, it's really hard to recognize as an adult, moving forward, how to find these same safe people. When we were kids, obviously, there were kind of permanent fixtures around us that I don't think we identified intrinsically as safe or unsafe or loving and unloving. We just kind of gravitate towards these people. Our grandfather, for example, like I always wanted to be at his house. And, I remember you and all of our other cousins being over there and just carrying over from childhood into adulthood. Like he remained calm and steady and loving presence to me. And I'm kind of embarrassed that it took me a lot of years to recognize him and even some of our uncles as loving male figures in our lives, not because they weren't generous and loving and giving, but because they weren't over the top. They weren't love bombing. They weren't in your face about it. Doing this episode, talking about I love you, man. We're talking about green flags, what to look out for. And I think the problem that we've had is that we don't know how to find these people as adults. We kind of took for granted when we were kids, that they were just around and there, so we didn't have to make any decisions. We didn't have to identify people. But as we move out of our childhood homes and get married and, start careers and form adult relationships, like we're not necessarily always gravitating towards our green flag people. We're used to this chaos. We're used to calamity. So when you're used to like excitement, noise, movement, busyness, like that becomes our new baseline, like our new normal. And so like I think for me, I've met a lot of people that felt like really exciting and like I gravitated towards that, because like it felt good to have fun and just let go. What I didn't realize when I was forming relationships with these people was that I wasn't seeking out people for the qualities that I needed. I was seeking them out for the qualities that were familiar to me. And now that I'm in my 40s, we've talked about going through different life stages and transitions and forging different relationships. I am a lot more discerning over whose company I keep. And, my friend circle is a lot smaller than it used to be. I used to,
Right.
feel like I had hundreds of friends. We could, call a buddy, any day of the week and go out and have 10 beers and have a good time. And I just thought all of these people were my friends all the time. So I feel like through my 20s, being in transient military communities and, even going through my 30s and being in the happy hour corporate America environment, I had a lot of superficial friendships. And that's not to say they weren't good people. We didn't form that intimate connection, from having a deep friendship. We weren't talking about deep topics, like work people. You don't want to you don't want to get too far into the weeds with what's going on at house because man, that could bite you in the ass, guys. Do you run into this, Kendra? Like when people are nice to you, are you immediately skeptical? Like, what do you want? Like, what's your angle? Like, why are you being nice to me?
Yeah, I do. I do feel that way, because I believe for me, or our trauma dominated memory and identity. And so it made me question, like, okay, why are they being overly nice? You said our uncles, we have these uncles and our grandfather, and we didn't appreciate it. Not that we didn't appreciate it, we just didn't like look at it. We viewed it different as kids now that they're adults. And you're absolutely right. We do have two amazing uncles and on our side of the family. And our grandfather's passed away, but he was like you. I loved going over. I loved spending time with grandpa. There's so many memories, so many good memories. Probably not, funny to some other people, but they were funny to me. I mean, I don't know who we stuffed, but we stuffed one of our cousins in a washing machine one time. We didn't turn it on, folks. We didn't suffocate the person, and we let the door kind of crack, but we were scaring them like we were going to shut the door. I don't know which one it was. And then
Oh,
I
I do. And grandma was going to whoop her ass.
Yeah, I do remember that part. And then I remember the other part. It was so funny. Our grandfather had cows in his backyard, and he did have a pony at one time, but he had this electric fence, and there was a creek. And I'm sure Angela knows where I'm going with this because this is absolutely hilarious to this day. Probably not to you. Don't you remember we were running through the creek and you ran straight into the thing and like got you on your neck and you fell back? And I remember I was gonna get my ass beat because I allowed you to do it, but like I knew it was there. I really didn't, but it was really it was funny. And to this day, I laugh about that. She lived, obviously, she's here doing the podcast with me, but
Well,
those
it's
are funny
funny.
moments.
Well, because a couple years after that, like, our little baby cousin, he did the same thing, except like I was in your position where I was the older cousin, and I watched him like run up to the electric fence and he just grabbed it. He was like 3 years old and he was like, and I was just sitting there like, oh man, he's about to get his ass beat, which sounds counterintuitive because he got electrocuted. But yeah, no, that was the
But
sequence.
they told us, yeah, grandma and grandpa always said, don't touch it, So, and we just had to. It was in our nature. I think we all I think each one of us grabbed onto that fence at one time, or we dared each other. And yeah, it's a funny moment. But it is crazy to me how trauma dominates, memory and identity. And when you brought this episode up, I was like, that's a good thing to talk about, is the green lights and the good times. Two things can be true at the same time. Harm definitely existed for us, but so did good moments and so did good memories. And I know we're doing this podcast about what we went through, but I also want to tell people, don't let your trauma become your identity. Do not allow your trauma to dominate your memory or your identity. So when Angela said our circle got small, and it's not that the people that were in the large part of our lives were terrible people. That we're not saying that. We're just looking at the people that we allow in now more with discernment. And because there have been people, I'm sure Angela and I have talked privately, there have been people in both of our lives that have come in, and we didn't see all the red flags. We didn't see it. They weren't the right people for us. They weren't the people that were going to nurture us or build us up. And that's kind of what when you wanted to do this episode, is looking at the green lights and looking at the good. And I'll tell you what, Angela, I know you're surrounded by some really good people, and I am too. In our circle, we have each other as well. I love you, man. But we're also like, our circle is small, but we have all these green lights now with these friendships. And it's so nice and it's so relaxing to have friends like that. Don't you think?
Absolutely. I wonder too, how much of it was that we had superficial friendships and how much of it was that We just moved into a different phase in our life where we needed something different from the friendship. So in order to get like that deeper level that we needed, like it needed to be spread between fewer people. Like you know what I mean? Like if you have 50 best friends, you can't have like that deep intimate relationship with 50 of them, like maybe only 5 of them. So like you kind of
Right.
just naturally start thinning the herd a little bit so that you can give people like the amount of attention that you want. Or, like, do you have different tiers of friends? You know, like these are my high needs friends. These are almost like like one of those circle diagrams, you know, with the expanding layers.
Yeah, I think everybody has that. I've always gone off of when I do if I talk or do my speeches, I always hold up my hand and I always say the thumb is you, but the thumb needs to be supported for the whole hand to work by 4 other fingers. So if the thumb is you, these 4 people really you have to be picky. You got to be picky on what's supporting that hand, what's going to make that hand operate. And as we've gotten older, I've gotten really picky. And I not that I am picking apart a person, I'm picking like I'm being picky as far as what is going to work for me. It's not saying that person's not a good person. It's not saying that that person's bad. I'm saying like what is going to benefit my hand. For my hand to work, my hand to operate, I've got to have 4 individuals I trust. I have to be able to say, hey, for me, I've got to be able to call you up and say, I need some prayer. For instance, I need you to pray with me. And I know in my heart that these people are going to stand with me and have my same stance on something. Or I need to be able to not trauma dump, but like just get something off my chest and trust that it goes nowhere. And it's hard to find those people. It really is. But when you do, it's so empowering. And when that hand can operate fully and the things that you can pick up in life because your other 4 fingers are operating, it's powerful. But as far as layers go, absolutely. I do have friends where like, hey, we're going out on a limb. Like let's go to a flea market. We're not having an in-depth conversation. Or I have one girlfriend, and we are like this for each other. And we've had this conversation. She's my Costco buddy. That's the only thing we do together. That is literally the only thing we do together. We're not chit-chatting about anything
Do you get
except
the
the
hot
weather.
dogs at least?
No, yuck. Ugh.
Oh, Costco
Absolutely
hot
not.
dogs are so good.
No, that's so gross. So gross. I mean, we won't even go into what's in them hot dogs. But anyhow, I'm on a food conspiracy theory right now. So yeah, I'm having a hard time eating food after going down some rabbit holes. But anyhow, I have a Costco buddy, and it's good. It's okay. It's okay to have those layers. Not everybody has to be that 4. And I'm not everybody's 4. I'm 4 for just a couple people, and you have to accept that as well. I mean, don't you agree?
So you're doing this analogy about the hand, and I'm really digging it. And like as you're talking about it, I'm wondering, you're talking about like you're being a thumb and you got to pick out your other fingers. How many times has the actual problem, like when you're evaluating your friendship and saying, where did this go wrong? Like, have you ever figured out that the real issue was that, you had just kind of selected another thumb to go on your hand and like your hand doesn't have 2 thumbs, like you gotta, like they all kind of have to have their individual roles, right?
Oh, absolutely. I've always had, one finger and it's always that one spot, it's that person you bring in later in life. And, it's hard sometimes when you bring somebody on later in life because they're not part of the history of the other 3 fingers and you. So that 4th finger, I call it, we'll just say the pinky, will bring different people on and they'll last for maybe 4, 5, 6 years, sometimes 7, but then they distance off, but you still have these 3. So you always this one, your pinky, that sometimes is sometimes the hand isn't operating fully. Let's just put it that way. So you have to find a new pinky. And it's so hard though at our age because I don't know about you. I am not into friend dating anymore. Like I'm over it. Like I'm
I think
over
it's
it. Like
weird. Like I work from home now, and in my 30s, it used to at least be easy in the office, talking to different people and, just kind of starting with the happy hour, making yourself available and, that's how you meet people. And, maybe you can form little friendships off of that, but it usually starts with some kind of innocuous after work gathering.
Oh, I agree. And now you work from home. That's hard. So so you'll notice with friend dating now with you, it's going to be at the baseball park when you're watching your child play, and you're going to have a mom come over. I'm sure you have. She's gonna come over and she's gonna like start talking. Well, who's your son? And you're gonna be like so and so, and then you're gonna ask who her son is, and you're gonna form this relationship. And she will become your pinky. She'll become your pinky, but only during that baseball season. So like I had a pinky, and I'm still friends with these women from like I'm just using baseball as an example because both we have kids that play baseball. There's I'm still friends with him, even though my son doesn't do travel ball anymore. He's in college. I'm still friends with these moms, but we're all on different paths now. So that pinky's kind of gone away. So that's like friend dating, but you're forced into it like a work environment, like going to after hours. Your after hours are now becoming the ball field. You'll find you're going to discover it real real quickly as he gets involved in baseball more, and if he goes into travel ball, you'll become, there'll be friendships forged out of that. But you're only going to replace one finger because you still have your three right. I call them the ride or dies. They're there for the long haul. They've been there through the chaos. They've been through our breakdowns. They've been through, I mean, like for instance, you are one of my three. It's permanent. You're not going anywhere. But that pinky's always, that's always a newbie.
Well, maybe I should be paying more attention to these baseball people because, I've been going to sit out in the outfield, but like I've noticed these last couple games that people are pulling their chairs out into the outfield and talking to me. And I'm like, crap, like now I got to talk. But, maybe I should monopolize that opportunity because I was telling Jimmy before, like transitioning from that work stuff, that was easy to make friends and working from home. Like it's not so much. And, I was telling him, like, how does a 45-year-old make new friends? Like, it's not easy like when you're a kid. Am I supposed to just walk up to somebody in the grocery store and say, like, hey, I like your shoes. Do you want to be friends? Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
please
I
don't.
guess that kind of works, like people like compliment.
Please don't do that.
I
I
mean,
mean,
I
you could
get
like
asked
talk to
out in
them.
the grocery store all the time. Like, I
Oh
tell
my
you
gosh,
what,
that's so
ladies,
weird.
like, if you get divorced around 40, that is not the end of your world. You might think, you're going through this identity crisis and everything's over and like you're just dead inside. But no, like I promise you, you're gonna be grocery shopping in sweatpants and you're gonna be wearing a messy bun, and there's gonna be some divorcee in the frozen food section that's like, hey, what's up? And, like, you won't be interested, but you'll be a little flattered. Maybe, as long as it's not sweet.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Um, so when you said about this episode too, I also, pictured us talking with like the green lights, and we were talking private in our private conversations prior to the podcast, talking about the good things in our lives. I wanted to reconnect with parts of ourselves that existed outside of trauma, moments of joy, safety, innocence, or connection. Because we've claimed this part of our story, and we're going to continue to talk about that part of our story. But this episode, I really want to reclaim the full story, not just the painful parts. There are good things that we've experienced with our family, that I don't want to, take away or people to think, oh, we're just bashing our family, because that is not what we're doing. We love, like we said prior, I think it was like episode 1, we said from the beginning, we love our mothers. But like, I've talked to my mom, and I told my mom, I'm like, hey, it's probably in your best interest that you don't listen to this, because I'm going to tell the truth. And I'm going to talk about the past and who you were in the past. Doesn't mean that's who you are now, but it was who you were in the past. And that's our story. That's part of our story to share. And, as reluctant as she was like, I get it. And I want people to know that, like, my mom's not the mom that she was back then, and she's not naive anymore. She does notice the red flags now. And but there were so many good things, as you know, that Angela and I did together. You know, we had a childhood. A lot of it we can't remember. You're right, because of the trauma overshadowing some parts. But there are some parts that we do remember, like locking one of our cousins in a washing machine, uh, grabbing onto an electric fence. And I remember in, I don't know, so our grandparents, meaning our step grandma and our grandfather, because our grandfather remarried, and she's pretty much, I mean, she's my grandma. Like that's all I've ever known. It's all
She's been
Angela's ever
around the
known.
whole time we've been here.
Since we've been here, she's grandma. But they built back in the day. I don't know if a lot of people know this. Grandma and Grandpa's house. I don't know if you know this, Angela. It was ordered from Sears. It was one of those houses that came. It was like the prefab houses that we have now, but it
Oh,
came
well,
from
I knew
Sears.
Grandpa built it. I didn't know it was like a prefab.
Yeah, it was a prefab. He didn't build it. So it came in like sections and he just put it together. Yeah. But I remember downstairs in the basement, they had the iron, I'm gonna say iron, because that's what it is. The iron poles that held up the floor for the
Like the
basement.
support beams.
The support beams. Yes. Do you remember those? And we
Yeah,
would
we used to
grab on,
spin around them, you
spin
know.
at them. Yes. And that was, I mean, that was a blast. And it was small moments like that that I have been working real hard since you said you want to talk on this episode like this, of the good times. Cause there were, I mean, we would spin and spin, and then grandma would come down, tell us not to. And we'd stop and we wait till she go back upstairs, and then we start spinning again.
Be like, welcome to the center stage, destiny.
Yeah, wrong.
Okay,
And
it
do you
wasn't like
remember?
that.
No, it definitely wasn't like that. Do you remember too grandma's white Christmas tree? Oh my gosh. Every
Well,
year
it
she'd
was
pull out.
so ugly, Grandpa made her put it in the basement. So like she had the green tree upstairs and she had that 80s
White.
monstrosity, like at
I
the
want that tree. I wish she probably still has it. Knowing
I'm sure
her,
she still has it. She has
she probably still has it.
my parents' living room furniture in her basement. My Rainbow Bright doll, is still like in the I have a Rainbow Bright doll from 1986 that like every single cousin in our family has played with. Grandpa's house is the toy graveyard, like that's where all our toys go to die.
And grandma does not. If you knew our grandmother, I do love you walk into her house and it's the same exact way it was when Angela and I were kids. And she has, I know we have picked fun at it. Everybody in the family has picked fun of it, but you walk in and upstairs in their living room, it's like a tri-level home. And she has a wall, like just saturated with every picture of every grandchild, every one of her children, and my grandfather's family. And just a beautiful array that's probably like clutter to somebody else, but I love it. I would never do it in my home. But I do love it. It's such a nostalgic thing, and I remember always going over there and just staring at all the pictures. And even today as an adult, when I've been out there, that's what I catch myself looking at the same pictures that we've looked at for years.
All my glamour shots on the wall, like with the with the thinker pose.
Right. I don't even know where she got half of those pictures, but she's got them. No, those are good memories, because yes, we are what happened to us, even though we could forgive and we're working on the healing still today, it did happen to us. Uh, but we were also children who laughed, played, dreamed. We had vivid imaginations. I mean, we had a caterpillar wedding. Who does that? Like, you have to have an imagination to do something like that. Who do you think, when you look back from what you can remember, Angela, who were you outside of the trauma?
I mean, outside of the trauma, I didn't really know who I was. I mean, I had a very voracious appetite for learning, but it was kind of limited to, whatever material I could get my hands on. And, that stimulation wasn't always there at home. I really enjoyed, when I was little, I remember before my brother was born, yeah, after Christopher died and before my other brother was born, I have a lot of really good memories of coming home from kindergarten. And man, remember that little wooden table I had where we would sit and color and stuff. It was
Yes,
like
yes.
one of those little toddler tables. Like I'd come home on the pig farm, and I'd sit with my mom after kindergarten and she would put on Scooby Doo. Like every day when I came home from school, I would watch Scooby Doo and she'd make me a little snack and we would play checkers or she used to play rummy with me. Um, man, I really enjoyed that. Um, my memory kind of cuts out when my brother was born. I think when he was a baby, my attention focused more towards books. I didn't have a lot of friends at school, but my cousins were my best friends. And there was another little girl in town that I was best friends with. So I have vivid memories of just wildly imaginative play. Like we lived out in the country. We didn't have tablets, we didn't have iPhones, we didn't have streaming. We had like 4 channels. And
Right.
children's programming was on like, Saturday morning, we could watch 2 to 3 hours of cartoons, and
And they
then
were the best cartoons.
they were the best cartoons, and maybe PBS had 30 minutes to an hour every day, like of educational programming. But yeah, in the 80s, like we were not watching TV. TV was not made for us, so like we were outside just dreaming shit up. And when I was 10, I had been taking piano lessons for a few years and I really enjoyed that. And when I was 10, I joined the orchestra at school and I started playing the cello. And I played that all through high school. And, you know, I found myself either playing music or when I was a teenager, just, getting those Columbia House CD or BMG CD memberships, where you get 14 for
Oh my
one
gosh,
cent.
yes, I remember those.
So I was just completely engrossed in music, in listening to it and playing it and writing it. Like it was stimulating my creative side and it was giving me like kind of an emotional outlet. Cause like I was saying, I didn't really know who I was. Like I didn't understand. I didn't understand my mind and people around me didn't understand my mind. So I think largely I just kind of adapted to whatever room I was in. And I feel like I have done that most of my life. And it's interesting because, I was talking with Jimmy recently and we were talking about a couple of those friendships I had that really soured. And he's met my 2 best friends. They were both in the service. One of them he was on the ship with and knows really well. And he ships those relationships 100%. And in talking with me, he said, Angela, what is the difference between these friendships that dissolved and the friendships that have lasted 20, 30 years? And I was like, I don't know. He's like, come on, then I got a little annoyed with him because I felt like he was doing that psychiatry thing, where he's like making me say I'm like, if you know the fucking answer, just tell me the answer. Like, don't therapize me. But no, he let me come to it. And basically, what is different about these friendships that I have now, like why they've lasted 20, 30 years, is that these women, and there's a few men, but my best friends, these women, I get to be 100% myself all the time. I don't have to mask. I don't have to be clean. I don't have to be regulated, and I don't mean clean like hygiene or house. I mean like neat, tidy, in like a an acceptable little package with a pretty bow on it, like I can show up in all my wild glory and they're they don't judge me for it, like they are just always there. They don't keep score. They don't escalate when I'm dysregulated. They're always the same, whether it's just the two of us, or we're in a room with 100 other people. Like, they don't change. And I think just being allowed to be myself all the time is helping me figure out who I am, because maybe I don't have the same person. And I'm not saying, I'm like schizophrenic and I got 20 different personalities, but like, you're not in the same mood every day.
No.
And like, man, wouldn't it be stressful if, you had a friend that's like, well, like, I became your friend when you were exciting and fun to be around. So you have to be exciting and fun to be around all the time. Or, like, maybe you sometimes have intellectual stimulating conversations with people, and they treat you like you're some sort of pseudo intellectual. They want to do this deep thinking talk. Man, like, just like right now, Kendra, like, sometimes my brain is like, bleh, and I don't have it in me to smart talk. Maybe I just want to talk about like American Idol or, whatever dumb shows on TV right now. And so like these people kind of ebb and flow with you.
Yeah, I just was watching a reel today, and it was a guy that was talking, I'm not that kind of friend. And I related to it so much. He goes, I'm not that kind of friend that you need to entertain. Just give me a blanket, give me the remote, and and you don't even have to give me a snack, and I'll sit there. That sometimes is what you need. And the friends that can shift through our different personalities, because believe it or not, everybody has a million different personalities. They really do. It's not saying that we're all schizophrenic, because the world's we're not all schizophrenic. But we all have different personalities that are drawn out in different moments of our lives. And when you have a friend that can shift from one section or one season to the next with you, and you might not be the same person you were in the last season, that's a green light. That is something you hold on to. That's something you maintain. And I found myself, especially the last couple years, going through, talking with a counselor and stuff, and sorting through some things, is I would always pour into everybody. And it becomes exhausting. And they narrowed it down, for me. I came up with the five, they didn't. So I just want to make sure that the five fingers, that's my thing. Okay, so
Dr. Kendra.
yes, that is my thing. So if you use this, counselors that are out there listening, that is mine. But I'll let you use it. But they said, why don't you take, because I would tell them my five method, and they're like, pour into those four, and that's it. You can be nice to everybody, but you don't have to go out of your way anymore, because when you pour, and that's something that we tend to do going through, and that is part of trauma. You tend to overpour. You tend to overcompensate, or I'm not going to say a people pleaser, but we kind of were. And so I have the past couple years, I have really picked up these four people, and I really have worked in trying to pour into their lives, and save my conversation or that headspace for them. Because like at the end of the day, your work, you're in meetings, I'm doing things all day, I'm talking. Sometimes you just don't want to, you just want to be able to sit next to somebody on a couch and not even say a word. And I love that, friends that can do that, and where I don't have to speak. Like you and I sometimes will sit in silence, even when we're recording. We'll just sit in silence for a minute, and it's okay.
Well,
It's like,
usually it's because we both forgot what we were talking about.
but it's okay. Or if we're on a phone conversation, sometimes I'll have to ask, "Hey, you still there? Like, are you still there?" You know, those are good green lights. Something that I was told, and it really helped me to, with looking at, and not just bringing green lights out in people, but talking about the past in good ways, is when we do that, folks, we're teaching our body that not everything was danger, and not everything is danger now. And that's, when you fixate on the past, and you fixate on only the bad, and only, I'm sure people are listening to this podcast, you're going to hear both bad and good. And we're going to go back and forth. And sometimes there may be a couple episodes in a row where it's like we just are, trying to focus on a topic, trying to get it out, trying to get a point out. And then there's going to be times where we're lighthearted like this, and like we were last week. But it's good to have those memories that if you can search as while you're searching, because Angela, I know you've been doing some things and some digging, and some memories have come back, and me as well. But while we're digging grass that was around that grave, and really focus on the flowers that grew from that grass, and that dirt and in that soil, and that's what I've been trying to do, is just to even things out, and that's why I want our listeners to even out too. you know I promise you, there is, excuse my French, but we have all lived through some shit, and we've all had some shitty things happen to us, whether it's child abuse, whether it's some other kind of abuse, whether it's a trauma, whether it's a loss of a friend or a loss of a family member. We've all been through something. And to focus just solely or talk solely on that, that's not healthy. You don't have to be a psychiatrist, you don't have to be a counselor. You need to have moments where you do focus on the good, because it helps regulate the nervous system. It builds emotional balance. It creates new neutral pathways around safety. So those are really good things. And when you have friends that can support that, and like I have a girlfriend who will stop me, and you and I are the same way. I'll be like, okay, Ange, don't fixate, or you'll tell me something. But I have a girlfriend that will say, okay, but what good happened? Like I'll just be in a moment and I'll get going, and blah, 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 how you get going sometimes on something, you're really angry, you're venting it out, or you have a memory and you're just kind of furious about it. And then she'll say, hey, I need you, what good happened today? Just tell me one good thing that happened today. It could have been you didn't trip over your own foot, like just anything.
I mean, you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? Yeah, that's a saying I used to hear growing up. It would be like so stinking depressing to just, write off the first 45 years and say, like, oh, well, that was all trash, time to start over. Because it wasn't. Like, I had years of good experiences, like intermingled with the bad experiences. And like that makes sense, right? Like otherwise, like I wouldn't have been able to get married or have children or have a career or do any of the things I did, because you gotta you gotta hang on to some of the positive stuff. And, like I'm not married to my children's father anymore, but I do like to tell them some stories about when they were younger and all of us were living in the same household, so they know intrinsically that, they were planned for, they were wanted, they were loved, they were, they were conceived and born out of love. And, for me, that's important for them to know because, I've questioned my own genesis, if you will. And like, it's important for me to relate to my children, like how beautiful and special and loved they were and are still.
I think that's
And
just amazing parenting right there.
oh, oh, thank you. But I have moved around a lot over these years, and I think like maybe that's why I had the idea for this episode because I'm kind of jealous of you sometimes, and like I know that you don't think I have any reason to be jealous of you, but you live where we grew up, like for the most part, like the people that you became friends with have always been around, like, and I know like they go to college and move away and kind of move to different towns, but I feel like a lot of them are probably still pretty close. My family moved when I was 17, so for my senior year of high school, we went to an entirely different part of the country. We moved from the Midwest to the South, so my senior year of high school, when I was supposed to be, like the head bitch in charge, if you will, I was essentially like a freshman and also a freshman with a funny accent because I moved to the South. So they all made fun, like they called me a Yankee back then. This is back in like 97, 98. So this is like back when the dudes used to wear like those bush hog, like baseball hats, like with the,
Oh
with
yeah.
the brim all they would have like a fish hook on it, like the little
Oh yes.
skull ring in their back pocket, and they'd be like, "Yeah, listen to this Yankee talk." Like, "Ah, la, la, la." And I'd say, "I don't talk like that." And they'd say, "Listen to you, sister." Right. Like I moved away from my childhood friends, so then like when I started college, I went to community college. I was working. I wasn't hanging out with those people. Then I moved and joined the Navy and we were, moving around for several years. And so I feel like my friends are all dispersed across the country and yeah, they're available like for phone calls and stuff, but man, we're all at different stages in our motherhood and our careers and our marriages, and it's hard to time that out. And I do seek those intimate connections like here where I live now, and I really struggle with like recognizing those green flags. And like, how do you know when you meet a person that this is a person that should be around? As I'm talking through this, Kendra, I'm wondering if I'm even asking the right question. I'm wondering if the right question is, are we expecting too much right out the gate? When we were younger and we would meet guys and it was like a roller coaster of emotions and we were like, holy cow, like I'm in love with this guy. I'm gonna, and you would feel like that after the first date. And let me tell you folks, like that roller coaster shit is like rarely like the one that stays. And I think like with relationships and friendships and stuff, like I'm always looking for like that immediate gratification, like that dopamine hit, like yes, 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 like this is the person. And then like I latch onto that person and I'm not picking up on green flags from other people, right? Think to myself like, oh, I should gravitate towards this person. I should, because they seem boring or normal. Like you're just not giving them a chance because they're not like exciting and in your face and jazz hands right now.
Well, I think there's we've always had the difference between us with the seeing the green flags sooner than later. I call it, you call it green flags, I call it discernment. And just really getting to, you look at certain people and they come into your life, and it's going to click. With guys, there's only one guy that I dated, literally, and I'm not, and if one of my exes is listening to this, please know I'm not dissing you. I think you're great people. Um, Seriously, a couple of the guys that I was serious with besides my husband, I mean, they really are great people, and they're happily married and have children now, and I'm so glad for that. And but I told my mom, my stepmom, I was cleaning stalls with her. We had horses growing up. And I told her, because I started dating my husband at 17 and we broke up like 3 times. And I actually, the first time I broke up with him, no, second time I broke up with him, and he broke up with me the first time. But when I broke up with him, I started dating a guy, and actually, you know, you could say we were really serious, but the feelings were never like, I mean, I liked him, and you want to say I wanted to say I loved him, because that's what you want. But I knew from day one, when the very first time I dated my husband at 17, I told my stepmom, I'm going to marry him. I don't know when, but I'm going to marry him. And that's kind of how I've been with my friends too. I've maybe messed up with a couple. I picked some couple that weren't ride or dies. Um, but for the most part, like, the jealousy that you said you may have about, growing up here, I want you to know that happens even when you're planted in the same area. The people that I grew up with, that we've been friends since, high school. Some friends I met when I was, through my husband at 17, we're still friends, and, I can pick up the phone and call, but that closeness isn't there anymore because we are at different stages in life. One of my girlfriends, they have a younger child. My children are older now. They're now experiencing what I've already lived. And it doesn't mean that the friendships aren't solid and the green lights still aren't there. It just, like you said, that it's kind of your friends are sprayed over because of, the traveling and moving that you guys did. But that still happens when you're planted too. And you have to understand, people have to understand that it's not that friendships are dispersing or they're not your ride or dies anymore. Instead, it's just a different season, and you'll meet up again if it's meant to be. But as far as green flags go, you know, I don't know. I think it's like that discernment. Like if there's somebody talking to me, like we went out. one time with a group of girls, and there was two new girls that I didn't know that were invited by one of my great friends. And I am always like, I don't know if you get this way, but I'm like kind of had anxiety because we were going on a weekend trip. And I'm thinking, okay, like, can I be myself? Are they going to like, I even asked my the girl that invited them, I'm like, listen, do I have to be on my best behavior? Or can I be me? Like, if I can't be me, I'm not going to enjoy this. And she's like, oh, yeah, be you. But you still have that anxiety, like, oh, great. Now I got to sit here. It's called like friend dating again. And I'm just like, oh, these are not, why? Why do we have to? But it turned out to be great. Now, are those two women part of my five? No, they're not. They're not on my hand. But I do appreciate, I still, if I still talk to them, I still like it, they still do come to our group gatherings. Sometimes we'll play bunco together, and they're great women, but they're
Oh, I
not,
love Bunko.
yeah, I do too. So speaking of bunko, they do that with euchre, and I never knew that. They play euchre like they do bunko, and you change partners. I'm sorry to get off topic, folks, but this is kind of a cool thing. So my
Yeah,
son lets
like
me,
look into Bunko. Like if you're looking for
yeah,
friends, like and you want to hang out with 11 other women once a month, do some
look into
Bunko, man.
bunko, or create like they do it with euchre too, and you change partners every game. So, but no, as far as green lights goes, I don't. I think what we've been through and getting as far as we have, we really have learned to like look for things. We pray for discernment, and we do see, those, hey, that person's really going to click with the group. And even though they're not, part of your four or five, your hand, doesn't mean they can't be a part of your life. It doesn't mean you don't have your large group anymore. They just, like you said, they're in a different circle of your diagram that you have drawn up. That's, your inner core, your outer core, and then core like this. You know, I look at it too, for me spiritually, Angela, and I've told you this before, when I ask people to pray with me about something, I ask my inner core. I say, I need you to pray over this. I'll talk about it in private, something that I don't share with outside of that inner core. But the outer core is just as important because I'm asking them to pray in general, meaning pray over the people that are praying for me. They already know the situation. So it is it's a really like it's kind of like a person. I envision like a person that is falling, and you got your main people holding it up, holding that person up, and then you have people holding them up. And do you picture it? Do
It
you
sounds
picture it?
like those corporate like those comics where or like Mean Girls. Remember that spot in Mean Girls where they were doing like the trust building
Oh yeah.
exercises,
they,
and,
they move.
and they all moved out of the way and let her fall on the floor.
Oh, that was a good movie.
And
Yeah,
they're like,
kind
she
of
doesn't
like
even go here. She doesn't even go here.
it's kind of like that, but it's just every layer has a purpose. Every layer of friendship has a purpose. You just have to make sure, like Angela was saying, that you really focus on looking for the green lights, and pray for discernment. Um, so just some advice I want to give our listeners is, as we're recalling the past and we're talking about the trauma that happened to us, and if you are a victim of sexual child abuse or some other kind of trauma that's really affected you, I want you to think of one small good memory to every bad memory, and sit with it. Sit with it for like 10 to 20 seconds. Notice how it makes your body feel, because when you sit with your trauma, you notice how it's just like, oh, you become tense and everything else. But notice what the good thought,
Oh.
yeah, notice what the good thought does. And you can say, I carried this painful thing, but in the same breath, say something good I remember is, whatever. Learn to speak to your younger self too. I see the pain you went through, and I also seeing the light that you carry. It's so important. I really, something I want to tell you, Angela, as I tell myself, and I want to tell our listeners, you were never only a victim, you were always more. And that is something that was said to me as I was going through counseling, as saying, and it really hit me. These are not my words, folks. Those words are not mine. That is who belonged to my counselor. And when she said, you were never only a victim, you were always more. And that really, I sat with that and it really helped me. So that's my parting words with you today. And look for the green lights, not always just red, your red lights are going to go off, but let your green lights go off every once in a while too.
Well, Kendra, you're not a victim, you're a survivor. You're a
Correct.
survivor, you're a warrior.
I try. I get it from my cousin, even though she's younger than me.
Well,
I love you, man.
well, hey man, like I love you too. And all you listeners, I love you guys. I want you to keep looking for those green flags. It's not like you need to go through life every day, out in the world, like, all right, like who's gonna be my new friend, who's gonna be my boyfriend. But yeah, whoever's listening to this, may you experience love that is clear. May you be met without needing to explain yourself. May your voice not be used against you. May your needs not be treated like burdens. May you find the people who stay the same in every single room, on every single day, in every single version of you. And may you recognize these people when they show up, even if it feels unfamiliar at first. Because you were never meant to survive love, you were made to feel safe in it. So, Father God, let that kind of love find our listeners and let them recognize it when it does. Quiet the parts of them that expect confusion and soften the parts of them that brace for harm. Teach them what safety feels like, not in theory, but in their body, in their relationships, and in their everyday lives. And God, if they've never known this kind of love before, if they've never known this non sexual intimacy, if they've never known this loving, Christ like relationship, let this be the place. Let this be the time. Today is the day this begins. We pray in your heavenly name. Amen.